Now, one of the key focus of this year's ASEAN Summit is to actively engage our youth and make sure they understand what the organization is all about and what it intends to do and the future ahead. After all, the young people today will be our future leaders. Now, as the 10 ASEAN countries move closer together, they do recognize the importance of getting our young people not only to identify with their country, but also with the whole ASEAN community. But do they really? That is the question. And how many students or young people actually ponder upon developments and closely watch the ASEAN Summit? Well, we hit the streets earlier and found out.
Yeah, I've heard about it. I think it's coming to Singapore if I'm not wrong. But it seems like a meeting about like all politicians and all the leaders and stuff like that. So I don't think I'll be like interested in knowing what's it going to be about.
I don't really know much about ASEAN, but as in I read the papers, they always say that they will meet up and then discuss, but then at the end of the day, I feel that the result is not showing anything.
I see it as a rather irrelevant organization. It's more of a talk shop than anything else. It doesn't really get much done that can't be done in other ways, like bilateral agreements between countries.
In ASEAN, we have like 10 different currencies, so maybe it would be better if we start having one currency.
The policy of non-intervention, I felt that perhaps if this policy was lacking, perhaps Myanmar wouldn't have happened.
I haven't heard about ASEAN Summit, but I don't think I'm interested in it also.
I actually never heard of ASEAN, and if I ask most of my Indian friends, even they don't know about ASEAN.
I don't know what ASEAN is doing for the people at an individual level.
I don't really feel the excitement, the thrill of celebrating it, so it doesn't really affect me. Not really bothered about it.
Well, we know many challenges lie ahead for us, whether it's on the top level or the ground level. With me right now is Bernise Ang, a avid social activist, and she's passionate about empowering young people about social change. Very good morning to you, Bernise.
Hi, Suzanne.
So we've had the clip about students and young people saying they don't know ASEAN, some of them, and they have no interest. Why do you think there is a lack of interest in what's happening around them?
Well, I think a lot of things have been said about this. What I would throw into the mix is the idea of a parallel universe. I think on one hand we see a framing of ASEAN affairs where our policymakers are talking about economic terms, economic integration and free trade, which paint a very one-dimensional economic picture of ASEAN, which young people may not necessarily relate to. And also on the other side of this parallel universe, maybe the policymakers might find there's a disjunct with the ASEAN human development aspect. For example, with youth programs, the youth are doing their own things and policymakers are doing their own things. So there's a bit of a gap there.
Do you think maybe it's communication between the top level and the young generation? Because sometimes, like you mentioned, big words are used and those are words that young people cannot really relate to. So maybe the approach should be made a little different.
Possibly. I think what has been very good is the existing exchange-based programs that have been going on, such as the SHIP for Southeast Asia Youth Program, which I think has been excellent. Maybe what we can move towards now also is to include more spaces for dialogue and interaction between our young people and our policymakers.
And how can we do that? What do you think will be the impetus to move the young generation forward to take interest?
We could have more
dialogue sessions,
forums, but also other situations where they can be a bit more candid and frank in their discussions. Because I think a lot of the times there's a bit of a stiffness around these official type forums, and our policymakers are human beings too. They want to listen to our young people too. So I think what we need is just to facilitate that happening by allowing them to integrate to interact in that way.
To really reach out to them on their level, right?
Yes.
Because they're up there. Well, Bernise, you're a young lady yourself in your 20s. Why are you interested? Why are you such an avid social activist? What got you started?
Wow, this could be a very long story.
To cut it short.
Yeah, to cut it short, I got involved in university days in social organizing around student interests, and then I found that this was a really inspiring way to get involved and actually make a little bit of a contribution to our society. So I kind of picked up on that bug and decided to come back to Singapore after studying in Australia to do something here.
And I'm sure, among your friends, you have people or friends who are more like you or interested, and some friends who are not. What are the major complaints, and what do you think you can do to help?
Ooh.
What can we all do actually to change their minds?
Well, I think a lot of it is about taking the first step to be personally involved. A lot of times after university, then it's straight into the rat race and corporate world. You work and then you have mortgages to pay and everything. So there's very little time for volunteerism or even social change.
Right.
But I think for people who have taken that step before and still have a lot of opportunities to do so, they can simply volunteer with a non-profit organization or identify for themselves, what do I care about? Is it poverty? Is it homeless children? AIDS? What is it? And just do something small. But from there you can branch out into a lot of other things.
Right, and that will eventually, hopefully, make a difference. Well, thank you so much, Bernise, for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Bernise with the insight. She is a young lady herself, 20s, early 20s, in fact, and she's giving us a perspective from the young people's generation. That's something for all of us, actually, not just the young generation, for all of us to ponder upon and really get engaged in what's happening around us. And that will make a difference in our society and community, I think. Back to you, Steve.
That's right, Suzanne. And she just mentioned, you just need to find one cause or one sort of something to be passionate about, one little thing, and you can make that difference. But it's great to see, sort of young minds active as well. All right, Suzanne, thanks so much for all those updates.